Howdy! Today we are going to talk about linear functions. Our objectives for today are to determine the slope of a line when given a graph, write the equation of the linear function when given the graph, and draw the graph of a linear function when given an equation. So let's start with the basic linear equation, y equals mx plus b. The y represents the y value in the equation. M stands for slope, x is the x value in the equation, and b is the y-intercept. The easiest way to calculate the slope of a line when given a graph is to use rise over run. You can also use change in y over change in x, but rise over run means the same thing. So let's see an example. We are given this graph with this function. First, we should plot our points where the graph is at a whole number. So we can see that right here is a perfect intersection, here is a perfect intersection, and we can continue to find them. And so once we have those plotted, we can choose two of these points. So let's go ahead and choose this one and this one. And we can use rise over run. So when we are looking for our rise, we count up or down from the point. So if we're using this point and this point, we're going to count up, and we will count across for our run. So we count 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is our rise value, and 1, 2, 3. 3 is our run value. And so our slope would be 4/3. Rise over run. Let's practice. We are given this graph, and what we should do first is plot the points. So let's see, we have 1, 2, and we'll continue to find them. And so we will choose 2 and do rise over run. So we rise 1, 2, and we run 1. So we have 2 over 1, which gives us a slope of 2. Here's another example, and this is our function. So we need to find our points. Perfect. And now we do rise over run. So 1, 2, 2 for our rise, and 1, 2, 3 for our run. So our slope is 2/3. Alright, so now we are going to learn how to write an equation of a linear function when given a graph. We're going to use the same graph from example 1. So remember our general equation, y equals mx plus b. All we need to write this equation is our slope and our y-intercept, which is our b. So remember, we use rise over run to get our slope, and our slope is 2 over 1, which gives us 2. And to find our y-intercept, we need to find where the line hits the y-axis. So in this case, it hits right here at -1. So what we will do is we will plug in our slope, which is 2 to our m, and our y-intercept, which is -1, to our b, into our y equals mx plus b equation. So our equation for this function would be y equals 2x minus 1. Let's try another example. We're going to use the same example from example 2. So we need to find the slope. So rise over run gives us 2/3. So now if we look at this graph, our function does not cross the y-axis at a definite point. As you can see, it's right here. It's in between -2 and -3. And so what are we going to do? Well, let's find another point on the graph. And how will finding another point help us? Well, x, y is a coordinate of the function, and we can use algebra to solve for b when we plug in the slope, which we know, which is 2/3, and the x and y values, which we can find on the graph by using another point. So let's start with what we know. We have y equals 2/3 x plus b. We can pick from one of the points that we plotted, so we can either choose this one, this one, this one, this one, or this one. This one seems easiest because it's 4, 0, and solving with zeros is always easy. So we can plug in 4 for our x value and 0 for our y value. Then we can multiply 2/3 by 4, and that gives us 8/3. Then we have 0 equals 8/3 plus b. Now we can just use basic algebra to solve for our missing value, and that would be subtracting 8/3 from both sides, which gives us negative 8/3 equals b. So our equation would be y equals 2/3 x minus 8/3. Now it's time to learn how to graph a linear function when given its equation. Our first example is y equals 3/5 x plus 1. So, using our y equals mx plus b, we have 3/5 as our slope, because that's where the m would be. And so, our y-intercept is also 1. And so the easiest way to go about this is to plot our y-intercept first and use rise over run, going up 3 and over 5, in order to find all the points, and then we can connect the dots. So let's plot our first point at +1. We're going to count up 3 and across to the right 5 to plot our second point, and we're going to continue plotting until we have our points. And now all we have to do is connect the dots, and that will give us y equals 3/5 x plus 1 graphed. Let's do another example. So we have y equals 3x minus 3. Once again, let's go ahead and start with the y-intercept. This time we have -3, so we are going to plot the point 0, -3. Our slope is 3, and since we need rise over run to help determine how many times we need to count up and down or side to side, we're going to have to turn 3 into a fraction. 3 as a fraction is just 3 over 1, so we will count up 3 and jump to the right 1 and continue until we have all of our points. Then we connect the dots and we have our function. Y equals 3x minus 3. Our last example is y equals 5/2 x plus 5. Let's start with our y-intercept. So let's plot the point 0, 5. From that point, we count up 5 and over to the right 2. We are going to continue to do this until we have all of our points. And then we will connect the dots, and there you have y equals 5/2 plus 5, 5/2 x plus 5 graphed.